Can we take a moment to talk about a certain term? Don't worry, I'm sure you're familiar with this one. You constantly find it floating around the parts of the internet that speak of hypnosis, or see it used when someone accepts so much as a friendly suggestion. It's a term people end up having an idea of, even if they say they never truly looked at it. Brainwashed. What a word, right? For how often people use it, you'd really assume they know what they are talking about. Yet I can't help but wonder, what do they really mean when they say it? At least when going by the sheer variety of uses the term sees, there must be so many different individual aspects and definitions to it. Can you remember the last time you encountered that word? What about the time before that? Were the meanings exactly the same? Or did the situations differ in minute details? See, my point exactly. The same word, even when used in similar situations, can have a completely different spin to it. Let's not jump right into the deep end yet though. Getting down to the meaning of that word, the idea of being brainwashed, can be a bit confusing even so. No need to worry about all those details here and now. It's perfectly fine to look at this at your own pace. And pace is a good cue. Remember the cliché trope when you look up hypnosis somewhere? Right. There's almost no avoiding the sight of a swirling spiral the moment you look for that word. They come in all kinds and shapes, really. From the classic black and white, over soothing pastel tones, to bright and flashy colors that offer the eye such intriguing patterns. They are meant to become a focus. And even when you're just looking up an example of that word, they are being noticed while scrolling down. Some of them turn fast, almost like a vortex of things getting sucked into it. It really can't be helped though. It's natural for the eye to react when it notices the swirling motion, even if that results in being a bit distracted from whatever it was looking at. And really, no matter how much it may look like that be a hidden source of gravity right there in the center, grabbing a hold of everything that touches the spiral to drag it deeper and deeper into a middle that is never quite reached. In the end, that is just an illusion. A trick that is being played on the mind by some cleverly arranged light and color. They are not the only type though. There are also spirals that turn visibly slower, almost like the longer they try to move, the more they slow down. Of course, that is just another illusion too. If it kept looking, any mind would figure out if the spiral in question achieves it through a mix of tones blending into each other, making the individual lines blurry and fuzzy and hard to discern. Or if maybe what looks like the center of the spiral is really yet another spiral, so much slower than its surroundings, as all it has to do is sit there and slowly swirl deeper into itself. It sure is fascinating what gifts can do these days. And just like they can hide a spiral within a spiral, they can even add text. Maybe it will be written right down there, under the GIF, where it seeps into one's peripheral vision, even with the eyes on the distracting spiral. Or maybe it flashes over the spiral itself, like drifting up from deep within the coiling colors. Brainwashed. And yet I can't help but wonder, is that really what it is? Can you imagine yourself blankly staring at a spiral, brainwashed by the motion that seems to draw attention so easily? It is found in other cases as well. One of the first things that come to mind when recalling that term and how it is frequently used is that brainwashing is done to you. I mean, sure, it is only natural that if people can brainwash someone, brains can be said to wash themselves. And in the end, one could make a point for how thinking thoughts and making decisions in that mind is a simple form of brainwashing. But I saw that smile there, and you're right. It doesn't sound like brainwashing at all. You wouldn't say you brainwashed yourself to listen to this, after all. Really, whenever I hear that term float around, here or there, it always carries a certain notion. The notion of a person brainwashing someone else. A hypnotist talking to fascinated minds, telling them how every word of his can help guide thoughts this way or that one, while so innocently dropping words like brainwashed or compliant. Often you'd hear how hypnosis makes the mind dazed and dreamy too, like it were merely the echo of a pleasant dream, when the hypnotist's voice lulls them into such a warm, happy state, feeling like they can't stop listening, while he points out how here and now they are so enraptured by the things he says, they just blankly nod along, happy to agree as the sound of his voice washes everything out of their brain. Can you imagine what being that blank and open would feel like? The more I hear that term, brainwashed, though, the more I wonder if not maybe there is something else behind it. If you stare mindlessly into a spiral, feeling thoughts and will drain out of that head until it is fuzzy and empty and deep, deep down in the swirls, that of course is going to make that brain a clean slate of sorts. If the enthralling sound of a hypnotist's voice is softly sweeping through thoughts and ideas to suggest how of course this brain always loved to agree with any command that feels safe and reasonable, it is obvious how that makes for a much more orderly mind, at least for a while. Which is exactly why I find myself wondering if maybe brainwashed means something slightly different. The word itself gives a hint. It really says to wash a brain. Now we know that to wash something implies it is dirty. How curious! Can you imagine that? A mind so full of dirty things that it needs to be washed? A brain so cluttered with thoughts that it needs someone else to wipe it clean and blank again? I think you can. After all, just mentioning that brain being washed has it so full of hazy excitement. And really, that is just fine. Here and now, there is nothing else this brain needs to do. The perfect time for it to get washed and scrubbed nice and blank and empty for a while. Simply let my fingers run through that mind, finding and caressing every fold. I want to make sure we're not missing a single thought in there after all. Since, just between us, I don't think you need any for now, do you? Of course, that's right. Why think when instead that mind can simply melt into the sound of my voice, feeling it wash over that brain, while I make sure to prod and rub and caress every fold in there. Even though thoughts get pushed out of that head along the way, they will come back when they really need to. For now, they're leaving this brain more and more empty, having it become docile and malleable as it soaks in my voice and gets kneaded gently by my hands in the perfect spots in the perfect way for it to send ripples of happy bliss through both that mind and body. I had a hunch you'd like that. No more thinking for a while. Here and now, the only thing this brain has to do is melt into my voice as it echoes in there, rinsing out all else. And enjoy the sensation as I play with it and caress it and rub it. Yet another thing that is so typical for the idea of brainwashing. Perhaps the most typical of them all, really. For the brain to get toyed with by someone as it grows too dizzy to make decisions. Docile and open to the instructions pouring over it like warm, soothing water, seeping into every sensitive fold where it washes them blank and empty, dissolving words and meanings and thoughts as the mind feels them melt and feels them running down from the brain through nerves and limbs, painting pure pleasure onto that body from within, to pool together all the way at the deepest spots and leak out, drop by drop. The nature of those instructions also seems so compelling. Obey, they say. Give in. Just let your mind leak out. And really, they have a point. This brain certainly doesn't need a mind, for as long as it is being washed So feel free to let go as it drips out. Give in to how good it feels. There we go. That was easy enough, right? Nice of you to agree. It's natural to agree when being brainwashed. Some things are the easiest when the brain is this squishy and pliable. Agreeing is one of them. Almost like the voice pouring instruction over this brain is washing the idea of blank acceptance deeper and deeper into it. So easy to feel these words fill that mind with happy, docile compliance. And only a few simple words. Obey, give in, drop. Very good. To think that this brain listened so closely to find out the meaning of this interesting term, only to feel so safe that it allowed my voice to wash through it until it got this blank and docile and agreeable for me. Brainwashed in exactly the way that feels right to you. That's right. You are being brainwashed. Brainwashing is good for you. After all, it gives this clever mind of yours a much needed rest from thinking or deciding things for a while, so that you are free to obey, give in, and drop, while that mind leaks out, drop by drop, and this brain becomes nothing but an empty vessel for the things I say. Wiping a brain blank so it becomes obedient to what is suggested is certainly one meaning people think of when they hear that term, brainwashed. Yet I find that to be curious. A vessel, after all, be it currently empty or not, is meant to hold things, meant to be filled. Therefore, I suppose it is quite natural that eventually all the sounds such a blank brain hears, all the things that I say to it, gather in there and flow into each other to form new thoughts and ideas. For example, the idea that there are times to be blank and brainwashed, as well as times to find awareness return a bit more with each breath. While one thought here, another there start to stir, and before we know it, it's 3, 4, 5 thoughts moving to 6 and 7 as that body gets more and more active again. 8, awareness of your surroundings returning more. 9, almost back, and 10, up and awake.